All right, everybody. Before I start this interview, I just want to give a warning to the people of Las Vegas. Bring in the kids, lock the windows, close the doors. There's a bad guy coming to town, and he is joining me right now, Mr. Chael P. Sonnen, who, believe it or not, for not the first, not the second, but the third time, will be coaching on The Ultimate Fighter. Chael, how's it going, my friend?
Kevin, I appreciate it. Congratulations on your new project. I am one of your most loyal fans. But, this is the first time you've had me on. You and your fancy schmancy new famous friends have finally allowed Chael to come back home. I appreciate it. But I actually come here with a favor. I need something from you.
Yes, let's go.
Okay. I am going to do The Ultimate Fighter, which in the history of our industry has proven to be the greatest marketing vehicle that Dana White has ever discovered. And I'm doing it with DC. Now, there was some confusion. First off, DC stands for Daniel Cormier. And if you could help to get the word out, because the disrespect shown, this guy was a fighter, this guy. It's been a long time.
He fought?
Yeah. Oh, you can go look him up. No, this guy was good. He had the takedowns and the wrestling. He was good. This guy beat Pat Cummins.
I was going to ask you about him because I hadn't heard of him before.
Oh, he took out Pat Cummins. This is the guy. You probably heard about the guy that beat Pat Cummins.
The drive-thru guy, right?
This is him. I will text you the correct spelling of his name because it doesn't read anything like Cormier. But if you could just help to get that word out. And then, Kevin, there's also some confusion where people assumed, and I was one of those people too, that when they were bringing me in to coach Daniel Cormier, that I was going to be coaching and mentoring Daniel Cormier. It turns out they're going to give him the exact same position, but on with a different team. So you're going to bring in a real good editing team, but Craig Bersari and the guys, if we edit it just correctly, I think we can make the show work in spite of Daniel being there.
Yeah, I know it's going to be a one-man show, even though Cormier is going to somehow get some time on here. So, but before we get into that, Chael, I have an important question. I mentioned something to Dana White at UFC 311, and I need to get your reaction. So, all of 2024. Dana was making a big deal that John Jones was the pound-for-pound best fighter in the world, even though he had not fought prior to the Stipe fight since March of 2023. And everybody pointed that out, and he stuck to it. It's John Jones, it's John Jones, it's John Jones. But now after UFC 311, he goes ahead and he says, I now think it's Islam Makhachev. So my question to Dana at the time, and he ignored it, and I'm going to pose it to you. If John Jones would have not turned that fight down with Chael Sonnen, would he still think John Jones was number one pound for pound?
Yeah. And that's very interesting. I actually loved when you stand up to Dana. I love when you argue with him. Like, there's nobody else with the courage that you have, but I have seen that argument. And I was happy that Dana gave it to Islam for this point, not because of who do you believe had the overall skill, just to be the current pound for pound, you need to. But to watch anybody be crowned the GOAT for beating Moicano, who I'm a fan of, but we never would have put Moicano in a main event. We'd have never put him at the top of the bill on a pay-per-view, and we damn sure would have never put him in there for a belt. So when he falls into that place and you have the best in the world go and beat somebody who didn't belong there, I think that it is a surprise that it actually elevated him. I like that. It is so hard. One thing that Islam did, and you'll never get credit, Kevin, but guys that'll go, I'll fight anybody, and then you give him a guy in front of him or a ranked guy or a champion, you go, wow, he really did it. Wow, that guy had courage. That's generally a one-way street. Like, there are some real courageous, tough guys out there that'll fight anybody ranked in front of them. Anybody that the odds makers say they can't beat. There are some guys that thrive as the underdog. If you want to test that real, I'll fight anybody business, the trick is go the other way. Will you fight a guy not in the top 5 who you and your coaches have never one night envisioned fighting? Would you fight a guy who has everything to gain and you get nothing for it? Islam Makhachev had one choice, and it was to finish Moicano in the first round. Had he whipped him, but he didn't whip him in the very first round, it's a totally different story. And to watch Islam stand up to all of that, accept the fight, deal with the negativity in the locker room of one of his best friends suffering a defeat, which nobody saw that coming. No, Umar was a 3.5-1 favorite. You got to deal with that down moment. You got to put your game face on and go out and handle yourself. Islam deserves credit for that.
Chael, I wonder, getting into the Ultimate Fighter, does this coaching gig pay well? Do you expect to make some big cash off of this?
No, so the Ultimate Fighter doesn't pay, but generally speaking, uh, there's some prizes. Let me give you an example. The first time that I did it, there was a coach's challenge, and that was a $10,000 cash prize. I happened to win it. But they also had put up a motorcycle for whatever team won it, and I won. Now, Dana standardly gives the coaches a vehicle. They end up with a vehicle all the way back to the first season. And God, I think Randy Couture got like a Hummer or something. There's generally a vehicle, but it's never discussed. It is not guaranteed. And the way that you monetize it, which is very good monetization, but is to then have the fight. The fight will then bring the money. And so that's where you feel like you got paid because we're not fighting. And they want us to. They're begging. I just hung up with Dana. I said, Dana, please, under no circumstance, make the world look at Daniel Cormier with his shirt off. And I think they're considering it. I don't think there will be a fight. But if that, in fact, does happen, no, you're not paid to do it.
So, I'm disappointed to hear that. And I hope you do get the car because you could fix that head restraint that you got back there that needs a little bit of patching up.
This is my buddy's car, man. He turns it into a dog car. He's got a van. He's pulled the seats out the back. He hauls around 4 and 5 dogs. I barely fit into this thing because of all the dogs. And then they eat the car. So then you sit in a car that's eaten, not to mention, it smells like a dog.
And I would be thinking that they'd had a Rolls Royce up to Westland, Oregon for you to be driving around in.
That's what you would assume. You would think that I can be cool anywhere in the world I want to go, Kevin, except Westland, Oregon. I do not get cuts in line at Starbucks. Somebody doesn't pick up my tab at Starbucks. They do not care about me. In this town, if I want to be a cool guy, I got to leave my hometown.
So you're the bad guy in San Jose. You're the bad guy everywhere else. But in Westland, Oregon, you're just Chael.
I'm just another guy. That's exactly. No, people honk at me in traffic if I don't go when the light turns. No, it's a whole thing. I have a very unique automobile. Everybody knows that's.
I can see, yeah.
They don't treat me any different. It's very weird. You know what happened to the day when you go and beat up 51 men on pay-per-view that people are scared of you, and they are at certain places, just not here. It's an interesting thing, but this is home. I'll never leave. In fact, I'm getting ready to run for governor. When I tell you I'm not going to leave, I will never leave this state. I just might stay and fix it, though.
All right. Well, I'd like to hear that. So we'll look forward to that campaign. I wonder when you announce your candidacy, can I be the one to break the news on that?
I will do my absolute best, but then I'll have to remember this. So you got to send me a text message. But I'll put it in my calendar. But if I don't make good on it, I don't want you to think, wow, the guy's off on a bad foot. The very first thing he did was lie. I will try to bring it to you.
All right. That's all we can ask. Manny Pacquiao broke his senatorial run with me, so I would expect you to break the gubernatorial run with
Manny
me.
Stepped down from that, correct? I know Manny won. Manny was elected.
He's coming back in. So Manny lost his presidency. He's going back to run again for Senate now.
Yes. He did. From what I heard, he did a good job.
So 125 pounders and 170 pounders in this year's version of Tough. Any edge you're given to Cormier since he doesn't really know anything about mixed martial arts to allow him to get advantages to even things up?
Well, and we'll see how much he's there. He does a very noble thing. He coaches a wrestling team from some disgusting part of the world known as Gilroy, California. So we'll see how much he's actually here. I mean, we are in the heart of wrestling season, and I do not say that at all a joke. I mean, who's he going to coach? Is he going to coach the kids that he promised to coach, or is he going to coach these adults who he's yet to meet? We will literally see how that happens. But I will handle both teams if I have to. This isn't about the coaches. He gets presented that way. Kevin, I firmly believe this to be, in all promotional materials aside, the hardest tournament in sport. I've personally never had to be through anything. I came through the NCAA tournament 5 times. I mean, that is a tough 5 men in 3 days. It's hard. 3 different weigh-ins. Kevin, there is nowhere in the world where you ride to the venue with your opponent, where you get out and you warm up next to your opponent, where you beat the hell out of him as best you can while he's doing it back to you. You don't even get to call your mother. Whether you need someone to lift you up or you need someone to celebrate with, you don't even get to call her and tell her it happened. Then you get in the same vehicle and ride back to the same house where you're going to sit down and have dinner at the same table because it's the only table. There is no tournament in sport like this. And they do a great job of catching the physicality. Kevin, it's the mental side. It's the mental side that separates these guys. It's the mental side that if you come through it, you look at guys that have that experience and you look at them differently. You look at them and realize, man, you must have a level of result regardless of outcome. You must have a level of result. You must really want to be a fighter.
From compare, this is a great vehicle to get people into the UFC, and certainly there have been a lot of fighters that come out of this that have made massive impacts in the UFC. Compare it to the Contender Series as a vehicle to get into the UFC, and which entry do you think has somebody more prepared to be an elite fighter, coming in via the Contender Series or coming in via Tough?
What is wrong with him? What is wrong with Dana? Dana has the #1 vehicle in the history of marketing in our industry, and he's coming in and he's about to beat it with his own product. The Contender Series ratings. I love that show. That show is so simple. You take all of the lights and bells and whistles, which is what the #1 thing the UFC has to offer, is the way that you look on TV for yourself. You have a keepsake to show your kids later, the way the lights and the bell and all the cameras. They take it all away. They simplify it down. And it is very compelling. And which one will do better, time will tell. If we were to stop the tape right now, it's not even close. More guys that have won the Ultimate Fighter have gone on to be the world champion than guys that came through Contender Series. But Contender Series did produce Israel Adesanya, for example. So it's not like they don't have their world champion. They did produce Bo Nickel, who is completely undefeated. Like, Contender Series is a very hard thing. But Kevin, to have to fight 3 guys at random, you are never told. It is a straight line bracket. There is no politicking can be done to work out who your next opponent is. You are going to stand or fall on your own skills. Boxing only has that in the Olympic Games. My sport of wrestling only has that in the Olympic Games. MMA simply does not have it except on the Ultimate Fighter.
But you outsmart all these coaches with your picks, and you get the right picks in there. So it is kind of, you were able to manipulate it because the bad guy knows what he's doing.
No, I appreciate you saying that. Like at the end, it's very difficult for a coach to actually pull somebody up. In that short of a period of time, you could bring them down. You could have their mind in the wrong place, or you could overtrain them, which is a very common thing that coaches do. The guys are just exhausted, and it's very hard to train a room the same. You have some guys who've got to get some weight off because they got to weigh in 7 days and they got to fight in 8 days. You have another guy who's got to weigh in tonight and he's got to fight tomorrow, but you have to train them at the exact same time. So there is an actual art to how you are going to do that to keep guys fresh, physically and mentally. That is an actual art that many coaches have screwed up. But ultimately, it comes down to your pick. If you pick the right guy who happens to be the best guy, I happen to pick Kelvin Gastelum. I happen to be able to pick.
You pick him last, too.
Sure. Oh, dead last. That was opposite John Jones. And you know what? I didn't even pick him, Kevin. I forgot he was standing there. We did our picks and we're huddled up with the team, and there's a guy standing there, and it's my and I go, and I go like, I couldn't even produce his name. I go, oh well, and he comes over and we hand him a jersey. But ultimately, that was part of his strategy. Part of his strategy was to be, oh shucks, just a guy happy to be there for the ride. Forrest Griffin played it the same way. Forrest Griffin backed down and allowed Bobby Southworth to be the alpha male. Forrest never took that claim, but in his back pocket, he knew when the right time comes, I'm going to get
the bell rang.
That's right.
So let's end with 2 last questions. So one of them I'm going to give you is not about Tough, but about the Contender Series. And I think you are uniquely positioned to answer this question. So you got Laura Sanko sitting there doing the interview. She's doing a good job. Of course, the great Brendan Fitzgerald does a great job. What can they do to improve the analysis on those fights?
Isn't that fun? I'm so glad that Laura got that opportunity. Like Fitzgerald could be calling the nightly news. He is a trained professional. Laura was really just a fan, and I can relate to that, a fan that was given an opportunity. I think she does such a good job, and it's very unique to have that woman's voice. We don't have a lot of that in male-driven sport.
I love her, but on that other side, who's the other one there? What?
Sure. Well,
that other announcer.
You're talking about Bisping. I mean, right? I mean,
Is it Bisping or is it the coach?
Action.
Is it the coach opposite you?
So he's got. Who are you talking about? Daniel Cormier?
That guy. Yeah, that's the one.
They have him calling the contenders.
Once he's on there once in a while. I can't believe it.
I didn't know that. I thought it was Bisping. Well, Bisping, he's got one eye looking at you and he's got one eye looking away. I mean, it's probably important to get somebody like Daniel. I didn't know that. Generally, when Daniel's doing a pay-per-view, I'm on speed dial. I am texting him constantly. This is what the move's called. This is what he's setting up. And then he's basically reading text messages to the audience. I will start looking out for him. I was not aware he was doing contenders. I apologize, Daniel. I'll do a better job for you.
And I can confirm that. Anyways, Chael, last question would be this. You're going up against the guy we talked about. How do you say it again?
Cormier. Cormier. There's no A in it. There's no A in it, but it's pronounced Cormier. Trust me, it really is. Please.
And you went up against the greatest John Jones, and you went up against Vanderlei Silva.
I ripped his toe off. I ripped John Jones's toe off, and I threw it into the crowd. They were horrified.
We remember that. So which coach was the toughest, and which coach do you think is going to be wind up being the easiest?
Kevin, John Jones is so good. Oh my goodness, it is unexplainable verbally to explain how good John is, because you can't copy it. If you got a kid, and maybe it's even your own son, and so you're going to look at John Jones, the most successful and this highest paid Madison Square Garden headliner, and you're going to then copy what he did, thinking your kid will get a similar result. You are going to go about it wrong. There is only one John Jones, and it is so difficult to even tell you how good he is. Do you want to know who the best fighter is? This might surprise you. I've been in there with Fedor and Jones and Anderson 3 times. I just boxed Anderson. Great. These guys are great. Do you want to know who the best is? George St. Pierre. And I found that out in a practice room in a basement in Los Angeles when I showed up to fight him. That guy, and this doesn't bring me I'm a proud man myself, but to tell you from what I felt and what I experienced, who the toughest guy I've ever touched is, George St. Pierre is the answer to that question.
Wow. Well, the guy never fails to deliver. Chael Sonnen always comes up big. Did it again. Chael, appreciate you, brother.
You know, I had a chance. Ken, I had a chance one time. I was at the PI. I'm minding my own. I'm touring the PI. I'm getting a tour of it. Kazmat Chimaev was in the cage, and he was going to work out with Latifi, and Latifi was late. And I was in my street clothes, but this was my chance. I wanted to take my shirt, and I wanted to maybe we start on our knees or something like that. But Kazmat, can I get 5 minutes? Can I get 5 minutes live of grappling?
Did he turn it down?
Trying to beat you. I didn't ask him. I chickened out. Latifi was coming. I didn't really belong because I didn't have my gear on. I had my boots, and then they got the shoe rule. I have regretted that so bad because I would love to come and tell you. Guys won't tell you what happens in the practice room. I will. And I would have loved to have felt him, and it was such a missed opportunity. I would love to grab a hold of Khabib sometime too. But for the most part, I've touched all of them, and George was the best.
Well, you heard it from the man. Chael, we wish you luck. Have fun coaching on The Ultimate Fighter. We look forward to seeing the debut of that in May.
You were awesome. I will be back to announce plans for the presidency.
Presidency next, 2028, Chael Sonnen. See you, man.